Hello, Barbara here, and welcome to this month's Lessons from Leaders. Now, today I've got the great pleasure of chatting to a good friend of mine, Ian Turner, who is the Learning and Development Business Partner in People Development for Specsavers. Now, Ian has over 25 years experience in both retail operations and learning and development. He's worked across several renowned PLCs and international blue chip organisations, both as leader, as a trainer, as a facilitator and a coach, and is a real passionate advocate of the 70-20-10 model. Now, I know today's chat is going to be full of takeaways, so I can't wait to dive in. Hope you get some learning from it. Please let me know in the comments and I'll see you in there. Hello, Ian, and welcome to the Lessons from Leaders. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Hi, Barbara. Good to see you.
Hi, it's really nice to see you. So we're just going to have a chat about your role. So what are you doing at the minute? So just tell everybody a little bit about what your role is currently.
Sure. So at the moment, I'm a learning and development business partner working for a large global organisation. And my role is predominantly to ensure that leadership and management training and development is completed across the business, but also supporting people, right from the beginning of their careers. So apprentices as well, I get involved with. So it's quite a lot of stuff to get my teeth into.
And it's something that's really close to my heart, being an L&D person through and through. So,
Indeed.
So how did you get to that position? Tell us a bit about your journey.
Well, that's a good question. I guess probably the first 10 years of my working life was working in operations within retail. And I'd worked my way up to being an area manager with the Boots company. And I really enjoyed that job. But as with many things that go along in our lives, we have a change of plan because it's either something you want to do or it's forced upon you. And mine was a redundancy situation. So it gave me the chance to really review what it was that I got out of my job that I really enjoyed. And one of the things I was kind of famed for, if you like, in my role in operations, and something I really was passionate about, was the development of people. So it made absolute sense to me that given the opportunity to change careers, I would go towards the learning and development and the kind of developing people, because that was a natural thing that I love doing.
Isn't it funny that often we see redundancies as being a bad thing, don't we, as something really negative, but you're certainly describing it as being a positive, and I, from my personal experience as well, I was in a similar boat where I was made redundant and then it turned out to be the best thing that happened to me. So I think that's a really powerful takeaway right there, and we're only like 2 minutes in, that if we're facing something like a redundancy, it doesn't have to be the end all, does it? It can be the beginning of something.
And it's often the shudder that makes you do something different and makes you reassess, whereas sometimes if you are continuing on a certain path, you can keep just trundling along on that path without really thinking about it and just getting stuff as it happens to happen. Whereas if something like that comes along, you do have to reassess and go, okay, well, what's next? What am I going to do? So yeah, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, and it certainly has been for you, because it defined your entire career. You went down a completely different path, and I'm really pleased you did, because otherwise we would never have met.
True.
So so let's talk about leadership now, because I know when I asked you to do this, your first response was, hang on a minute, but I'm not a leader. So I want to talk about leadership, really, because I get that response a lot from people saying, I'm not a leader. Tell me what you define as being a leader.
Gosh, now that's a good one. I guess for me, a leader is somebody who really provides the kind of direction and vision towards a goal or an outcome that should be common for the people that you're working with, or for the business as it needs it. So I guess, you automatically, when you talk about being a leader, you think, I've got to have a team of people, that report into me and all that kind of stuff. And I guess that's where I was going into, because I suddenly thought, well, I don't really have a team that report into me. But then I thought about it a bit further and thought, well, hang on a minute, everything I touch, every project I go into will have involvement with influencing people, working within a team, working within a matrix. So actually, although I don't have the title of a leader, of course I have to lead as part of my day job. Without it, I wouldn't be successful. Simple as that.
Yeah. And again, I think that's a really valid point, because often we look at the word leader and we have this perception that it has to be somebody, like you said, that's maybe running a big department or maybe a company, or they've certainly got a team. But in actual fact, we can all be leaders, can't we? Regardless of where we are in the structure of the organisation, because we all touch
Absolutely.
and impact people. Yeah. So
Yep.
what advice would you then give somebody at the start of their leadership journey?
Yeah. Wow, that's another good question. I guess for me, what I've done in my past is I've always worked with people and for people. And what I've tended to do is take the aspects of them that I most liked and respected, that gave me the results that I wanted in regards to, for example, if I liked that person, I'd look at why did I like them and why did I like them being my leader? What was special about them? What was unique? And then I would take that on board myself and go, okay, so if that's what I think is a successful leader, why don't I replicate that or learn to do more of this or whatever? So I guess each individual will have their own leadership style. I think that's something we've got to admit. However, I think you can build that style as you go through. And of course, on the negative side, you're going to meet people along your time. They're going to go, I do not want to be like them. And that's also a great way of starting to really understand, because let's face it, we all are led at some stage and we can all be leaders. So therefore, we should be able to make a distinction between those good aspects and those not so good aspects and decide on them ourselves.
Yeah, I think that, again, that's a really valid point. So building on that, can you describe a person that's had the greatest impact on you as a leader?
Well, I think I've been profoundly lucky to work with some really strong leaders in my time. I guess the ones that really made a difference to me were those that believed in me, even when I perhaps didn't believe in myself as much as I should have done. But equally, they're the ones that challenged me and held my feet to the fire, if you like, and said, you can do this, or actually you are good enough, or whatever it happens to be. They were the ones that made me believe in myself more than I thought I could. So that, I think, would be the kind of people that really made a difference to me. But they're also challenging. We'd have a good relationship, but it would be an open relationship as well. There'd be times when we would disagree, but we would disagree on the basis of the best positive intent for both parties. It wasn't like I couldn't just say to them, no, I don't agree with you on that. There was much more of an opportunity for me to go, yeah, but I think this, and then we could have a little bit of a debate. So I think it was that openness and transparency in our relationship I think made the difference.
Yeah, I think so. How do you think that you become that person? What skills do you think that you need in order to create that relationship of openness and ability to challenge in a safe environment?
I think I'll go back again to that phrase of positive intent. If you always come towards an interaction with somebody with positive intent, that you're there to help them or to support them, I think that automatically makes you think and changes your mindset towards, I'm here to support rather than to find fault or, catch somebody doing something wrong or whatever it happens to be. How else would I describe it? I guess we could be also looking at things like going to things with an open mind. So don't have a preconception, be able to listen before talking. All the common kind of things we always speak about being important for just human interaction. I think particularly strongly in leadership is that ability to switch off your own inner talk and to listen to the other person, to understand them first, and then put your point across to be understood, and then have that openness and that honesty and trust.
Yeah, and again, another really important point, because when you talk about the common skills that are there for just basic human interaction, they can be dismissed quite easily, can't they? Because often we look for something that's revolutionary or for the next best thing, but often it's just going back to basics, isn't it?
It truly is, yeah. And I think actually that's something that, as you rightly say, could easily be forgotten or disregarded. And actually it's probably one of the most critical areas of being able to be an effective leader with good integrity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now that we're talking about skills, let's talk about challenges that you think other leaders, or certainly new leaders, what do you think the challenges that new leaders are facing right now?
Right now, I guess there are some common behavioural challenges, I think, with leaders, such as we just mentioned, the fact that we sometimes get wrapped up in our task and we forget about the person behind the task, the person that is actually doing the things for you, and that lack of relationship we perhaps put into that. But if we talk about things that are really concerning for leaders now, I guess it's just this over-connectedness that we have with our businesses and with our work, the 24/7 aspect, the fact that everything is quite volatile. There's quite a lot of ambiguity. So I think as a leader, it's a tough job. But I think even more so now, more importantly than ever before, is that a leader should provide that level of vision and clarity, because where there is none, people need to have some kind of clarity to be able to get the best possible results. Mm-hmm. And I think a leader's role should be there to build that relationship so people have that followership, that understanding, but equally have the clarity of mind and the vision to cut through all the ambiguity and the things that don't quite make sense for the team, and help them understand what it is that they actually need to achieve. So mm-hmm. I think it's more important now than ever.
Yeah. I'm interested in what you're saying about this being over-connected, and this 24/7 mentality and culture that we're creating for ourselves. What do you think we can do to get around that? Because I'm seeing more and more people really struggling with that and not being able to switch off.
Wow. If I had an answer for that one. It's not an easy one. It's not an easy one. I guess something I personally have learnt to do is to be a bit more selfish, perhaps I should use the phrase, with my time. So, for example, I absolutely will not look at my emails after 4 o'clock in the evening, or afternoon, I should say, simply for the fact that that's the kind of time that I need to get stuff done, ready for the next day, my preparation and all that kind of stuff. And it'd be also very easy just to keep going back and going, oh, ping, there goes another email. Mm-hmm. Well, that's going to stop me from being productive. It's going to stop me from being prepared and ready to be the best I can be tomorrow. So let's just say that I would stop at 4 o'clock. Now, some people might argue, I just can't do that. And I accept that that's the case. But I have to say, from my perspective, it's made a tremendous difference to how I perform for the following day. But also, it just gives me that rigor as a process that I say, that's my time to do what I need to do and get done what I need to get done. I guess that's the only answer I can really give.
Yeah, but I think it's a really good answer. But that it's that discipline, isn't it, of just giving yourself some boundaries. Say, right, from 4 o'clock, I'm going to get stuff done. You're not downing tools. You're just You're just being productive in a different way. Yeah. So you talk about being selfish, and I think this is probably one of the biggest hurdles that people struggle with, isn't it? It's that mentality of, can I be selfish? Can I put myself first? Is it wrong for me to do that? So how did you struggle with that, as in guilt, or did you think, no, this is the best thing for me?
I'd lie if I said I didn't struggle with it a bit. Of course I did. But I have realised that you've got to look at it as the pros and cons, haven't you? For me, I realised that the advantage was I would be more productive for the following day, and actually starting the day more strongly rather than in a hassle or a rush to try and get stuff done. For me, worked. And I think if I can give a better result from my team and the people I'm working with, based on the fact that I'm more prepared for the day, that's got to be an overriding thing. And to be honest with you, is anything that urgent after 4 o'clock? Is it really necessary to be answered that day? I'd prefer to say I'd answer it in the morning when I'm fresher and able to respond more appropriately, potentially. It's not urgent. Nothing really is going to be deadly urgent. Well, let's hope not.
Well, they'd have phoned you, I guess, wouldn't they? If it was that bad, they'd have found a different
good argument
contacting you. So let's talk about you a little bit, because I'm interested, because you're in L&D, and obviously this is the same background as myself. So how do you keep up to date with best practice, and how do you keep developing yourself? Because I know from personal experience, when you're in L&D, everybody else's development comes first, doesn't it? So what do you do to be selfish, if you like, to follow a theme?
Well, can I just check, Barbara, is this for in a kind of leadership development way, or in my own development in my role?
You're just your own development, yeah.
Both. Okay. Well, what I've started to do is work with a colleague of mine who I used to work with many years ago, and we now, for example, every Saturday we'll write each other 3 pieces of gratitude from the week. So it's a bit of reflective practice. So we go through that. Now that in its own allows me to reflect on what I've done throughout the week, share it with somebody else, and learn from somebody else equally. So I think that's quite a positive thing to do. But also it encourages me to reflect on the week and think, okay, so what did I do? What did I do well? What didn't I do so well? What can I do differently next time? Just simple stuff like that. I'm also a prolific, love writing on LinkedIn, and actually I've just been published as well, which is really great. For me. I'm really delighted by that. But that's another thing I do to learn, because I reflect on my week. What have I learned from the week? And if I can share it with somebody else, either on LinkedIn or via this, gratitude activity that I do, I think it really helps me learn more. But of course, I still do all the typical learning, like, I'll attend workshops, I'll go on webinars, but I tend to use, Google an awful lot, and those favourite kind of sites, to learn. I'm doing a qualification at the moment as well for the CMI, level 7 for leadership or strategic leadership. Now, I don't need to do that for my role, but if I'm working with leaders, I want to be able to talk to them in their terms. So I'm learning that as well. And I just think that's how I keep alive and keep abreast of what's going on in the world, by just learning as much as I can and using other people to learn from as well.
Yeah. And I'm really interested in a couple of things that you said in terms of, one, the gratitude every week. I think it's so powerful. One thing that I do with my one-to-one clients is, we call it a celebration journal, where every day we write down what we're celebrating, and it can be something as small as, today I had a really nice cup of tea and that was great, to something huge like, I've been published today, which is something that you could celebrate recently. So it doesn't always have to be huge things, it can be something small as well, and to train our minds to actually look for the great things that happen in your day. But what I'm interested in, what you said, is that you're sharing it with somebody else, so you're learning from their gratitude, and that's really powerful.
So, I think that is.
Sorry, go on.
No, you go.
I was going to say, how do you use that, rather than just reading what they've done? How do you use that as a learning experience?
Well, more often than not, we tend to communicate about stuff that we're grateful for work or in our family lives, or an experience we've had. So it just allows us to kind of share that moment and understand what it means for the other person. And sometimes just that, reflecting on that and thinking, do you know that, what would that mean to me if I did that? Or what would it mean to me if that experience was mine? How would I react? How would I respond? What would be good? All those kind of questions, I guess I'd ask. So learning from it is probably, I've got to be honest, I learn more about the person rather than necessarily what they've done. But it does allow me to learn kind of how they've reacted to something and how they've worked with something. And it allows me just to compare what would I have done on that situation.
Yeah. No, I think it's really powerful. And the other thing that you said, that again, I was interested because somebody else that we interviewed not long ago actually mentioned LinkedIn as a learning experience, just like you have, that they write and post on LinkedIn and they get as much back from that experience as they do from helping others. So often we think of social media, and we talked about this being connected 24/7, as being something that it might not be a great thing, but actually it can be a really good resource for learning and developing ourselves.
Absolutely. I have to confess, Barbara, I'm not a great social networker at all. LinkedIn is the only thing I'm actually on. And the only reason I'm on it is because I believe that I think, the people on there generally have things of interest for me, because you can select, can't you, who you get and, what you read and all that kind of stuff. So it's really pertinent to what I want to learn about and to talk about. And I guess for me, it's that, I know it's easy to say it's the professional side, but I don't think anyone's interested in what I had for breakfast. But whether they're interested in what I've got to say about learning and development, or whether I can read and learn stuff from them, absolutely. I mean, I've had my eyes open to many, many things as I've read articles on LinkedIn, or even followed people like yourself or other colleagues or people on LinkedIn, and it just springs into your mind, and it just makes you think for that day, how can I apply that? How can I do that differently? Or how can I bring that to my work, or whatever it happens to be? I think it's a huge benefit to it. Huge.
And I think that last piece that you've just said, how can I apply that, is really crucial, isn't it? Because again, with my L&D hat on, it's all very well and good having it all rattling around in your head, but unless you apply it, it's not actually adding any value.
Pointless. Exactly, yeah.
So we're going to sum up, or just finish up now, because I know you've got a lot to do today. Can you recommend one book or podcast that you could that other people might like to read that would help them on their journey?
Okay, now yes, I can. I love and totally believe in the work of Patrick Lencioni and the 5 dysfunctions of a team. Now, if you're a leader and you're leading people, and even if you're not a leader, but you're like me, where you're leading people at different times for different projects or whatever, understanding those 5 dysfunctions that exist in every single team is critical. But more importantly, how to actually overcome them, which is also covered off in that book, I think it's worth its weight in gold, because it's the difference between productivity and just being part of a group. And that for me is my recommendation. Yeah, Patrick Lencioni, 5 dysfunctions of a team.
I agree. That's one of my fave books as well. I really like it. So good recommendation. Well done.
We try.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I've really enjoyed chatting to you.
It's good.
So if somebody wants to connect with you on LinkedIn, are you up for that, Ian? Are you all
absolutely,
right?
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody who's interested in having a conversation about L&D coaching, or just wants to read some of the stuff I put on there, or let me read what they've put on there, I'm always open for that.
Right, fantastic. I will put a link to your LinkedIn page under this video, so please feel free to go and connect with Ian. But thanks so much, and I'll let you get off. Thank you, Ian.
Thanks, Barbara. Cheers.
Bye.